Thanks for joining us. My name is Megan Hare. I'm a student recruiter advisor at Thompson Rivers University. I'm really excited tonight to be showing you more about our Adventure Studies program, along with Craig Campbell. He's the chair of the program. So, with that, we'll get going and dive right in. So we always like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that TRU campuses are located on the traditional and unceded land of the Tecumloops to Secwepemc within the Secwepemc Ulu. So this is our awesome team in the Future Student Office. We are campus generalists, so we know a little bit about a lot of things at TRU. If we don't know something, we're really great at tracking down information to help you figure it out. We really help with pre-admission advising, so you can contact us if you have any questions about how to apply to a program or submit transcripts or how to register in courses, or maybe if you're unsure about which program to take, we're really happy to give you a hand with that. So with that, I will hand it over to Craig so we can learn more about adventure studies. I'll be here to monitor your questions and keep an eye on those to ask Craig.
It's 10-4. Thank you, Megan. Hello, everyone out there on the internet. My name is Craig Campbell, and I'm the chair of the Adventure Studies Department. A chair is sort of the administrative function, somebody who kind of keeps the back end of the program rolling. I also deliver courses here in the whitewater space and also small business marketing, small business management. I was a student here a long time ago, and I came back as a faculty after running my own business for a number of years in industry and living in the Kootenay region of British Columbia. And I really enjoy my time here at TRU because I bring the past student perspective, but also the industry experience to my role here in the position. And a lot of our faculty are sort of similar in that way. They have a lot of industry experience blended with academic experience. So I'm really stoked to tell you and share a little bit about our program. So for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to jump into sort of the Kamloops area. Some folks haven't been to Kamloops, right? So we'll talk a little bit about broad brush, what it's like to be a student here in our program. We'll take a look at the Adventure Studies programs in particular. We have a little bit different application process than happens at the General University, so I'll talk about that. Anyhow, the Adventure Studies Department is situated at TRU, right, which Secwepemc Ulu is the indigenous name to this general area. And the reason it was chosen to deliver this program here in the central interior of BC is its location proximate to the mountain activities that we offer or that our adventure tourism industry in British Columbia offers. So if you look at this map, you've got, sort of just to the west, moving towards Revelstoke and Golden, you've got the Columbia Mountains. A number of our ski touring courses take place in the Columbia Mountains. Even our mountaineering courses will happen in the national parks, so up the Icefields Parkway. So, that's a half day's drive from here. Maybe it's on the coast. If you look to the left of what you're looking at there, you have the Coast Range of Mountains. We do some coastal programming there. We can get out to the island within a day for our sea kayaking and our surf programming. So it's really nice and centrally located. Some of the big things I like about Kamloops personally are the fabulous trails. And we have the trail enthusiast. This picture is obviously taken in the springtime. The desert space and the grasslands are just fabulous in the springtime. But in terms of getting to green space for staying active and for your mental and physical health, the trails here are world class. Sort of my favorite thing. Also, skiing is another big draw for students in our particular program. And we're also pretty well situated to do several different ski resorts. My family, with my 4-year-old, we go bombing up to Sun Peaks on the weekends. But we have students that will, go to Revelstoke, Silver Star, Whistler, on their breaks and what have you. So again, sort of centrally located in some ways. So that's a little about our area. We'll talk a little now about the programs in particular. And so actually this spring in February is going to mark the 30th anniversary of Adventure Studies, which is just amazing to think about. It's a long run. And the reason we've had a long run and it's been a successful program is we've done things just a little bit different than what's been done in the landscape elsewhere in post-secondary education and in adventure education. So what do I mean by that? Well, this program was really sort of started to help structure the guiding industry. So heli skiing guides, sea kayak guides, river guides. When the industry was sort of nascent or just kind of getting popular, the adventure tourism sector in BC, but there wasn't a lot of structure, not a lot of certification, a lot of professionalism, or quite varying professionals. There were great outfitters and there were not so great outfitters. So there was a need sort of for structuring the professionalism of the industry, if you will. So that's how it was born. In fact, when I took the program, Ross Kluche, who had started it after a 1991 Everest bid, was the person who started up this program along with his MBA. So he blended sort of that academic world and the real world experience of high mountain expeditions, right, to give us a strong pedigree. And like that's sort of we held that same reputation in some ways of a strong pedigree in the adventure landscape, if you will. What you see here is basically our offer of 3 1-2-1 courses, apparently, 3 different program pieces. The Adventure Guide Certificate is generally like a general entry first year. It's kind of like an overview of the adventure tourism industry, and I'll speak to that a little more in depth in a moment. Then there's the Adventure Guide Diploma. That's sort of our flagship program, if you will, that most people get involved with TRU's Adventure Studies. They come here for that 2-year diploma. And then through a smaller degree, we have the degrees, which are a 4-year Bachelor of Tourism Management degree. So, and it's designed to ladder in, and you can either sort of ladder in off the start, like, no, I want to do my degree and start with one spot, like a certificate, and go all the way through 4 years. Or you could do, the diploma, take off, work in industry for a while, and then come back and work. Or come back and study your degree at a later point in time. So it's made to have sort of flexible entry and exit points, and it's really nice. One of the TRU's pushes around creating the environment for lifelong learning, and so we really adapt to that, I would say. This little flow chart, you just see what we offer. One thing in particular, we have the Adventure Guide Certificate. We also have a version of our certificate in Keeler Health Academy in Iceland, and this essentially it's like a franchised version of our first year. And what that is one of our graduates from a while back went back to Iceland, took a leadership role in their industry, and was like, hey, we could use this kind of programming to help structure our industry, which if you follow tourism growth, Iceland has seen growth off the charts in the last 15 years or 10 years. So we have a potential to take your first year there and transfer back into the guide diploma here, or into the degrees. Are there any questions from the floor before I keep rolling? Great. So Prakam says, what about post-baccalaureate? We do have a post-baccalaureate in adventure studies. And so what that is like it's a 1-year certificate that takes mostly our degree courses. So it's less in the field, like our adventure studies certificate and diploma. And it's more sort of theoretical with a little bit of the hands-on. And actually that's a good segue. If you look at this picture, the guide certificate and guide diploma, the year 1 and 2, those are really, really hands-on experiential. You're in the field a lot, and I'll talk about that in just a sec. The degree is more like your standard degree at any institution. You're in academic classes that run 12 weeks a year, 3 hours a week in a certain class, and they're a little more managerial focused. So I'll talk about that. So to answer your question, Prakam, is that the post-bac, it takes largely a bunch of those BTM courses.
Someone's heard of a adventure studies program at another college, and they're wondering about how transferring into TRU would work or what that would look like.
Really depends on the college, where it is. Some of them we have articulation agreements where they can transfer in. It depends on what you want to transfer into. So transferring into our degree is actually really easy. We can port over a bunch of those credits fairly easily. If you were at a 1-year somewhere else and applying to take our diploma, it's really tricky in that case, because a lot of those our certificate diploma courses are offered here. Like we develop them and we curate that content, and they're not offered anywhere else, so they don't transfer easily. So a simple question is, into the diploma, it's really tough by case. Into the degree, it's much easier.
Sure. Great. So someone else has said they're currently enrolled in the Bachelor of Tourism Management this year, and how would transferring to adventure studies work for next year?
Great question. And the first thing I'd say to you is talk to Greg Simmons, who's the specific advisor for the School of Tourism or the Faculty of Adventure Culinary Tourism, because Greg is really knowledgeable because he advises BTM students if you're in there now. and he's also a graduate of our diploma. So he would be the best person to talk to. I wouldn't want to give you specific advice other than it is possible. It's our
Right.
job to find out how that works.
Yeah, so with lots of our programs, it's really best to apply and submit those transcripts, and then you can work with the faculty experts in those areas to see what it'll look like for your particular situation. Another question here, Craig, someone has asked, is it possible to just do the certificate?
It is, yeah. So I'll just jump right into that right now. While we're looking at the certificate. Um, so every year, in terms of our application here, we get about 70 to 90 applicants for about 45 spots in our first year of the certificate. And then we have about 30 or 35 spots in our diploma um, for people to move on. So there's a little bit of a competitive process from first year to second year. So it is possible. Some people just want to take a 1-year introduction, maybe learn some new life skills, maybe do a bit of a career orientation, but don't want to go all the way into full guiding. So it is possible to do that. If it's a really competitive first year entry, then we do look at people who are more invested in the diploma, that we weight those a little more. But it totally is possible.
Perfect.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you. Don't be shy. Um, so I'll just keep rolling with we'll do a little more of a deep dive into our programming. So essentially, the Adventure Guide Certificate, as you can see here, it's kind of a general catch-all. It's an introductory first year to the adventure industry. Philosophically, we have you take field courses in rock climbing to whitewater kayaking. It doesn't matter if you know you want to be a mountain guide or you know you want to be a river or ocean person. We have a breadth of activity courses to help expand the comfort zone, if you will, in that experiential learning environment. So it's kind of an entry level. Everybody starts here, and then it's modular or block formatted. If there's one thing you take out of this conversation today, that's the real big difference between our program and many other on the university. Our guide certificate and the diploma are both block formatted. So what that means is, I'm looking at my office at Old Main here, and if I was taking a biology class over here, there would be 12 weeks of the semester that starts, September 1st to December 1st. You'd be in class every week for 3 hours, roughly, right? With us, we're block formatted. So what we do, because we're experiential and out in the field, we're going to shorten those to 6 weeks of field and 6 weeks academic block. And so from the end of August to the middle of October, you're going to be out in the field probably 4 out of those 6 weeks. You're going to be doing rock climbing, could be sea kayaking, could be surfing, could be whitewater kayaking. Definitely we'll start with wilderness travel. That's your number one. So depending on what you pick, you'll be out in the field for 4 to 6 weeks and of what we call the field season. And then the academic season starts sort of mid-October right to December 1st. And so you'll have those compressed classes. So that same biology course you might have taken up there over 12 weeks, you're going to take it with us. It's not biology, but it'll be something like accounting or adventure tourism industry, for example. Those will be given over the compressed 6 weeks. So it's a little bit busy, and that's what we call block formatted. From there, you can apply to the second year. Actually, students here will be doing applications pretty darn soon into the second year. And like I mentioned, if there's about 45 spots in the first year, about 30 in the second year. It's a little bit of a competitive process depending on the year. This year, not so much because of COVID, we had a bit of a lighter intake, but typically it's fairly robust. But what I like to tell people is if you do a good job, you do your best, and you will get on to the second year, right? Here I see your question there. When's the deadline to apply? Great question, and I'll address it right now. Maybe I'll get to that slide later. We talk about it. Well, I may as well just strike while the iron's hot. Essentially, what we do is called a rolling intake. Okay, so a rolling intake, what the heck does that mean, Craig? Well, instead of first application in gets in, what we do is we have a bit of a scoring grid that looks at your previous experience, right? And I'll talk a little more about that in a bit. And what we try to do is, of those 45 students we allow in the first year, we'll try to take around 10 or 12 a month. Starting in December here, we're going to allow 10 or 12 people in. Then we'll do the same thing January, February, March, right? So it's a rolling intake. So it's not like if we got 30 applications in right now, not all those people are going to get in at this point in time. The top 12 would, and then the rest will sort of go on a wait list and then get reevaluated with the new ones that come in next year. So that way it gives people an opportunity to apply throughout the year, if that makes sense. To answer your question specifically about what's the deadline, there is no deadline other than we fill up sort of end of March. So what I would say is, have your application in before mid-January would be the best. The sooner the better. Liam asks if I'm 19 early January, can I still apply? Yes, you still could take courses. We do a special exemption. 19 is our benchmark, if you will. That's largely tied to custodial groups in the national parks, which require us to have 19-year-olds. So it may mean that you can't take a mountaineering course if you're not 19 yet, but you could do the rest of our programming, signing a special waiver that you could enter when you're 18. Great questions. This particular picture is, where's that from? This is from a Mountain 1 course, Mountaineering 1. What this student is learning right now is what's called the Canadian Drop Loop. And it's for crevasse rescue. Someone of your team, you're roped up on a glacier, someone falls in a glacier. This is the method in which you extricate them. It's part of Mountaineering 1. The guide diploma, the difference between the guide diploma is, now you're layering on what I like to call our sort of business suite, right? So you take your entry level first year, your sort of overview of the adventure tourism industry, and now you set in some of those courses that really differentiate our graduates from many other programs in Canada. So you have a business course, business for adventure operators. You have a marketing course, right? So business and marketing for adventure operators. You have an accounting course, everybody's favorite, and then we have a risk and liability management course. So those 4 courses take you from just being a guide to help you offer or to help you offer your services to the small businesses that run adventure tourism programming in our industry. So the idea is we're kind of setting the standard for a really helpful employee, if you will, but also we have a bit of an entrepreneurial or enterprising mindset here. Everybody in this program completes a business plan, completes a marketing plan, and a risk and liability management plan. And the idea is it helps you to, be a small business owner if you wanted to be, which is exactly what I did. I left this program with those 3 plans in hand, and I went to my local bank, and they said, well, Craig, this is really nice. You don't really have any money. You have student debt. It's kind of a bit of a risk, but some of the feedback I got is they really liked those professional plans that I had developed here. And within a month of leaving here, I had a loan to start my business. So that doesn't happen. It's pretty rare, but that's sort of what we're aiming for so that you can create yourself more opportunity, more employment within the industry. I'll just stop right there. Is there a question?
We have a few questions. So
Yeah.
I think it would be great to get some clarification about when you apply. Should you apply to the certificate first? Is it ever possible to apply to the diploma? And someone was asking about their age as well.
Well, I think I addressed the idea of if you're 18, right? Like 19 is our benchmark. You need to be 19 to enter our program.
Right.
We have had 18-year-old people who turn 18 during their first year here. That is possible. They may not be able to take a mountaineering course in their first year here. And then, sorry, the other questions were around.
If it's possible to directly enter the second year, so the business or the diploma.
So I'm not really sure I understand that question. Like, is that question around like you have experience somewhere else and you want to transfer that in for your first year and then go into the diploma? If that's your question, then it's not necessarily. It is possible, but not advisable. Like if you did a program somewhere else, it's really tricky. We don't necessarily recognize all those credits. But otherwise, everybody applies if you want to do the diploma or the certificate, you apply to the certificate as a general first year entry. And on your application form, it says, are you interested in the diploma or degree? You check those boxes if you are. But the admission is to the Adventure Studies Department certificate.
Great, thank you for clarifying. So another question about the admission averages. What are we looking at for admission averages typically?
Like for grades?
Yes.
Yeah, great question. And what I would say is we don't really look at that. In fact, we look at that so little as a chair, I can't even tell you what the average would be, okay? Because you'll see on our website, right, we have the application folder or all the requirements of the application. And we look at a holistic application. So we're not so worried about your grades. We're worried about you as a person. Is this a good program for you? And is this is this a program that you're going to flourish in? And will you bring something to our learning community, right? So your grades are important, that you pass your classes and you're not, you're not a liability, shall we say, like an academic liability. We are a university, right? But we are experiential learning. And so, a lot of our students are very kinesthetic learners. And we look for things like, you've done maybe some high-end sports, maybe you've done some coaching, maybe you've done some community service, um, adventure travel, and then sort of being strong in two of our disciplines. That's really what we look at, and the academics complement that. We don't look at the grade point average as getting in here, as it would in many other programs.
Great, thank you.
Typical calendar year, I think I already touched on this already, but sort of the field season, right? You can see here September to late October, you're in the field. Then late October, you have the theory. Then as soon as the theory is done, you have your 80-hour first aid, which is a certification course that everybody must take. Ski skills courses are the last thing before the break. And those are kind of an optional course. The ski skills, those are for people who maybe don't have the skills and they want to go on to the ski touring program, which is non-mechanized backcountry skiing, because those courses start in January. Typical Christmas holidays that you would get at most institutions. And then in January, we start right up away with classroom theory. It's kind of like the theory part mixed in with the ice climbing, some of the winter ski stuff, the avalanche, obviously. And then we have from March to April, a bunch of the field activity courses. And then somewhere in there for the diploma graduates, for one of the graduating requirements of the diploma is an expedition. And so the expeditions can be domestic in nature. But pre-COVID, they were international in nature as well. It really depends on what the interests, budgets and climate is of the political climate. So that's sort of the snapshot there. So just sort of like to recap, the adventure, the diploma is sort of one of the flagship course. It's really looking at giving advanced skills in both activities and business. So you might sort of specialize in activities and then and also do your business plan in that second year. The other thing is it's designed to get you the max amount of industry certifications that may be available within the course. Some you can get during the course, some we train you up to get outside of the course. So that's a little bit about the diplomas. I'll jump right into the degree. Basically, any post-secondary education here in BC, you're looking at 30 credits a year. So your cert would be 30 credits, your diploma, 30 credits, and then you have to do another 60 in the degree. So we have an adventure studies stream in the Bachelor of Tourism Management. You can also do more of a general stream in Bachelor of Tourism Management. And that's a relatively prescribed number of courses and set courses you take. With the major adventure studies, we do have a capstone that runs at the end. And we've done some really cool things. We've done, backcountry huts sort of weekends as a capstone course. In this particular picture, we have capstone went up and visited Mike Wigley's. Mike Wigley's heli skiing operation is a world-renowned leader in the heli skiing space. And this is actually Mike, who passed away last year. This is him joining our group of students. So we always do something really special for the capstone. And we try to make it so that the BTM is sort of as, it's an academic program. It's not really vocational and hands-on like our diploma courses are, but we try to get them as sort of project-based as possible. Some of those things you might do in the degree, looking at more business management, you might be looking at more education, the whole space around consulting and adventure, and looking at, we also have some field schools that happen around the community development space. As I mentioned, project-based learning. If you don't know what that means, it's basically like we try to take a terminal project in a course, and we work through that project as a project during the class so that you can have applied skills. So for example, we worked with a local First Nation a few years ago in a business applications course. We looked at strategic planning, and this particular First Nation was looking at building a campground. So we did a feasibility study on what kind of guests might want to go there, what kind of motivations would they be, where would they come from, right? And we applied our research towards the project. And at the end, we handed them a project. So really great sort of learning experience for the students. And also, it's great to have some community impact too. I saw that question flash by. I see you, Megan. What do you got for me?
So someone's wondering if it's possible to transfer to maybe a different program like general business degree as opposed to tourism.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I always tell people who are interested in transferring elsewhere, you really need to talk to wherever else that you want to go, because they're the ones who are going to decide what credits they will take, right? Our diploma is fairly specialized, so it's not like, a lot of places don't have articulation agreements to transfer in a business of adventure course necessarily. So you want to check before you do that. There is also general studies here at TRU. Yep, another degree at TRU. So general studies and the Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies is one that actually a number of our students have really taken to as well. And what that is basically you could port all 60 credits into a Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies, and then you can take courses from other areas. So I know we have some interested in, for example, adventure therapy. And so then they've taken courses from social work or psychology or anthropology and combined to make themselves a concentration within a Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies. That's actually a pretty cool option that we do offer as well. We don't really, it's not our faculty, so we don't talk about it as much, but in terms of student success, we're happy to kind of, if that's your interest, that's where we're happy to have those discussions with you. Another question there I saw. Yeah.
So how about deferring in your program? If somebody's accepted and maybe changes plans, is it possible to defer their admission to the following year?
No, we don't do deferrals. Yeah. We would hold the application on file and you could reapply the next year and just update your application, but typically, no, we don't. So how do you get involved? How do you do the application? Well, this is the first step, right? A program information session, just to get that way you know sort of what it is. Then there's kind of a two-pronged application. You apply to TRU, and then there's also what comes to us, right? So particularly for adventure students, we have a cover letter, a resume, right, of just a general resume, 2 letters of reference, and these can be work, they could be school, they could be coaches, right, that you might have had. We're pretty wide open with those. And then there's the outdoor experience log. This gets a lot of people hung up. They're like, holy crow, the template for the outdoor experience log is quite vast. And it's just so that we can catch all your user days that you might have been out in the backcountry or out working on skills or being a practitioner recreationally. So, so for example, when I came here, this outdoor experience log was quite daunting. I had nothing in the ski or the avalanche or that space backcountry. I didn't even know what it was. I had come from Ontario and I had a strong whitewater kayaking and whitewater canoeing and rafting background. So that's what filled my pages. But also other things that might be pertinent to you being successful here, like canoe camping or attending summer camps or um, outdoor sports that you might have been involved in. What it does is that outdoor experience log helps to paint a picture that you will be successful here. So for example, like our first course is wilderness travel. You come here on campus, you do 5 days in class on the basics of wilderness travel and navigation, and then boom, you're gone up into the mountains of Wells Gray for 5 days of backpacking with an ACMG, which is Association Canadian Mountain Guide, a certified guide, and you work your navigation skills. So we want people to be on that course as they first get here that have the self-care basics sort of taken care of, right? So that outdoor log helps us sort of understand that you have the aptitude to perform in that environment. Doesn't mean you have to be a star performer. You can be technically mediocre in your skills. That's fine. People's skills are very sought after in our industry, but your ability to kind of self-care in the outdoors is a big deal in our application process. After that, we do an interview. It take about half an hour, and we just kind of ask more pertinent questions around your file, make sure it's a good fit for you, and make sure we answer any questions you may have. And then from there, we let you know if you're in or if you get waitlisted for the month on that sort of rolling acceptance, if you will. We also have pretty robust medical and waiver forms that we encourage you to take. You take to your physician, and then also for the waiver, you could take that to your lawyer if you want. They're pretty solid, sort of legally binding documents, if you will. And just so you really understand what you're getting into, because we are very active, of course. Did I see one more question there?
You sure did. So is everyone who applies invited for an interview?
Not necessarily.
Another question. What would a small experience log look like? I have experience, but they're not sure if it's enough.
Small would be you don't have much in terms of breadth of activities, like you haven't been outside much, not many days of camping, right? And then maybe not many multi-day activities, right? So, what we typically look for is somebody who has recreational strength in sort of two of our areas. So maybe you're strong in canoeing and you've done some rock climbing, or maybe lots of skiing and kayaking, right? So we kind of look for two of those. We have had people that are really like, I know I'm going this way, or I've had people, some of our really successful people here have been like high performance athletes in one area, right? I'm a provincial caliber cross country skier. Well, we don't even offer cross country skiing, right? But they're really strong in an outdoor pursuit and they're interested in broadening their skill sets. So to answer your question, what a light log would look like is, it doesn't have much in it and it doesn't have much breadth. But that being said, it's one of the tools we use to assess your readiness for our program. And sometimes we have had I had a student from Massachusetts who called me up and he's like, this is my dream, I want to do this. His application package was not strong, right? But we had a space, and he basically gave me his personal guarantee that he was going to crush it, if you will, and he did just that. He came here, right? So we look at the person holistically. We don't necessarily make a cut and dry judgment just on what we see there. Okay, so yeah, then we do interviews, then we let you know if you're in, and then there's a commitment fee. I think this is June 1st. There's a commitment fee, and you get all these forms back into us. And after that, we do a second orientation session, sort of your course selection of your elective courses to let you know what you're getting into. And during the summer, July 1st, we have, you have to have all your course selection in, and we create like a Facebook group where everybody can join in and start the party, find places to live, and ask questions and sort of crowdsource information. Go ahead. I know there's one more question.
So, do you have any pointers for the application in terms of what to include on your cover letter and resume? And do you have a minimum or maximum length that you're really looking at?
The faculty who are going to assess it are all very busy, right? So keep it succinct, keep it to the point. 2 pages max on your cover letter. Don't go beyond that. And I would say speak from the heart and speak from your motivations of why you would want to come here. What do you think you'll bring to this program, and what are you hoping to get out of it, right? I think that's probably the best advice I can give you there. And then any supporting things that you think, around being service oriented to your community, your outdoor aspirations in the future, these things help to build a good case for you. I saw the question about international tuition fees. They're different. And I don't know, Megan, are you well versed in international tuition fees?
We do have a department called TRU World who helps our international students. So they would be the best point of contact. We can include their details in our chat, but international students do pay more tuition than domestic students.
So yeah, this is for domestic students, and I'm not going to say that it's not an expensive program. It is an expensive program, and the reason that is because experiential education requires more resources. And well, what the heck do you mean by that, Craig? Well, if I look at Old Main again over here, and you take a biology class with 60 other students, you have one prof, and you're all sitting in the classroom, right? There's no extra cost to your tuition. If you're going on our rock climbing course, Mountain 3, getting you ready for your Association of Canadian Mountain Guides exams, and you're in a group of 1 to 4, or a ratio of 1 instructor to 4 students in the mountains, you have to drive there, you have all the equipment, like ropes and harnesses and these things that are provided, right? So the costs are way higher. So every one of our courses has what's called an activity fee. So you take up the sort of what we call variable costs associated with a particular course. We would divide that up by the average amount of participants, and that's an activity fee that you pay in addition to your tuition. So what's in that activity fee? Nice segue. See what I did there? The cost. What's in there? So those really small ratios, right? We aim for 1 to 3 to 1 to 6 instructor ratios, and these people are typically at the highest certification level in their domain. Right. So, for example, we only use Canadian Mountain Guides for anything in mountain terrain. Right. That's the standard, the UIAGM international standard. Right. So that also covers any transportation. It could helicopters, vans, hostels. Depending on where you're at, what you're doing. And then there's group gear. Right. Some of the group gear you get. Other things that you'd be responsible for would be obviously your accommodation on campus or in the community here, and then your food. And typically students find student loans in your province of origin. Here you go, international students. I thought I had a slide on here. It's a base fee. Now you want to double check if this is updated this year. It does change from time to time, but a base fee for international students for 12 credits. And of course, each additional credit after is $500, right? So there's 30 credits in a year that you would be taking here, right? So it will add up quickly. So you want to reach out to your international student advisor. We do have a Nepali student at the moment. We have an Indian student at the moment. Every year we have probably about 4 or 5 different international students, and probably 3 or 4 First Nation, Métis, or Inuit students in the program too. Okay, some of the other things that are included here that are really awesome are, I would say, some of the differentiators in our program. It would be the gear bay. This is one of our graduates who did some extra hours here working in the gear bay. Basically, what happens here, it's kind of like a bit of a library type system where you pay your damage deposit and then you can sign stuff out to use. Now, if it's getting used on a course, obviously you won't be able to take it. But once that course is over and you're trained to a certain standard, you could sign things out for your use. So, for example, last weekend, I know a number of our students who had taken kayaking courses in September, they signed out kayaks, canoes, and paddles for a couple of weeks after the course ended. So during their academic blocks, when they have time, they can go for a paddle and work on their skill development. And we really encourage that, and so that's included in there. Same with the avalanche equipment, right? Skis, transceivers. If you look at what you're looking at right here, like this little orange bag is skins, which go in the bottom of skis for ski touring. So a skis, skins, poles, and transceivers setup for you to buy your own. You're looking probably north of $2,000 to $3,000. So you can sign those out and use them during your time here, which is really awesome until you learn what equipment you want to use, or maybe save the money to purchase stuff you want. Same goes with paddle sports accessories, kayaks, canoes. We have a whole array in our gear bay of whitewater canoes. I did see your question. Summer camps are awesome. Your question was, would those hours count? Summer camps actually, a lot of people have come here and have been very successful in our program working at summer camps because you build up really strong interpersonal and leadership skills in addition to the technical outdoor skills. The adventure industry, we thought over COVID here, it was just going to melt down. People were so terrified of where it's going to go, right? You don't want to hang out with groups. But what we've seen is an explosion in personal recreation and guided activity, right? So salaries, there are, tourism salaries are not as high as other sectors in some areas, right? What I often like to say is, you don't get into adventure tourism to be rich, but to lead a life of rich experiences, right? You're out in the mountains, you're out on the oceans, and what have you. So, but nevertheless, what we train you up to do is kind of stack what we call like multi-season employment. So for example, my roommate, when I did the program, he's a heli skiing guide, and he uses those same sort of self-care and outdoor navigation skills as a tree faller in the summer and the fall, right? So he has kind of multi-season, different types of employment. And even though, forestry wasn't a direct program that he took here at TRU, a lot of the skills, the self-care and the outdoors, the wilderness first aid, all these things helped him to get into that industry. He's been doing that for a long time. So, and our graduates, man, are they all over the map? Like it's actually fun. We're just planning right now for next month. We're going to do our 30th annual pin party, and well, it's our 30th year. Probably around our 28th pin party. But what that means, the pin party is where you get a graduation pin for your certificate or your diploma, and we're going to have graduates in that. It's going to be online this year. And they're going to come from all over the world. We did this online last year too. It was awesome. It's sort of one of our awesome community building traditions here, I would say, in adventure studies. And so we have people like literally all over the world. Last year we had somebody from New Zealand. We had people from Nepal on the line. We had people from Great Britain. So it's really it's a rich learning community. Actually, it's one of the nicest things that I really enjoy about being chair here is our rich in the loyalty of our learning community. So these are just some examples of where people go with, when they leave here, what they go and do. There is no cookie cutter. This is where you go, right? We try to develop that entrepreneurial mindset. A number of people have worked in education. Some people have gone on to grad studies, right, doing a master's or even a PhD, working as economic development officers or executive director, right, for an organization, a nonprofit. So it's really sort of all over the map where they might be. pretty much done being a talking head. I'm happy to field any questions you may have. I'll just say right now, we have our Adventure Studies and our Adventure You Outdoor Club. These are two active Facebook groups, and then there's the Instagram page where we do student takeovers. So if you're interested in kind of following a little bit of where we do, what are some of our people doing on course, you follow our Insta page, and you get some neat stuff there. And obviously, you've seen our website, which is in the middle of getting a revamp, but there's also always updated info there.
So some questions about gear. If people have their own gear, are they welcome to bring it and use it, or do they have to use what's provided?
Nope, you're absolutely, you're welcome. You're encouraged, especially in the time of COVID. We're really encouraging people to bring their own gear.
And more details about the option to study in Iceland.
Well, basically, it's the same application that comes here to TRU, and on there, it's, you can indicate if that's your first choice or your second choice, right? So typically, what happens is people come here to Kamloops, and then if we get full, then we send them over to the application to Keeler in Iceland. I actually haven't been. I'm one of the only faculties. I was supposed to go for a quality assurance visit in 2020 to teach a raft guiding course there, but we got shut down due to COVID. So I haven't actually been there for the nuts and bolts of the program, but it's the same curriculum that we offer here. It's in a different order just because of the seasonality of what they live there. And the mountains aren't as big, so they don't have like a mountain two. But those courses you take there can port here into the diploma, no problem. And every year we probably get 2 to 3 students from there. It's a smaller cohort. It's 12 to 15 students there. And every year we get a couple come over here, and it's just great because they just bring a whole different breath of fresh air, and learning experiences.
That sounds like so much fun.
Right?
Yeah. So another question here about how far back can the logbook go? So is experience from 2 years ago okay? How far are we looking?
If you think it might be relevant, put it on there. Um, and don't worry about dates. Like I know there's a section of dates and like, so for example, if you've been canoe camping or hiking with your parents since you were 5 years old and you've gone, 5 trips every summer because you have active parents, put that on there. You don't have to put the dates. You can just put an estimation of like, I've done 25 hiking days in my life, right? So that kind of just helps us get the picture of like what your experience level is in the outdoors. So go back as far as you think might be relevant.
And someone is wondering about their grade 12 transcripts if they don't have all their final grades yet. I can speak a little bit about that. That will be in my slides that are coming, but you'll want to submit your interim transcripts for what we can see you're enrolled in right now. And then once you have those final grades, you'll want to submit those as well.
So Megan, what I'm hearing from you is apply with what you have, and then we'll bring the files up to snuff as they come in. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly.
Great. I can see the chat here. Tanager says it's not about money, but it could be an obstacle for some. Is there any way of getting outdoor gear for a discounted price through the school? So yeah, 100%. Money can definitely be an obstacle, and we recognize that. We do have actually a number of bursaries for our students from our alumni and from our community partners for students who are doing well in the program, who perform well, work hard in it. We do have some discounted gear available. So every year, this year is really tough because all of our suppliers are having supply issues due to COVID, right? So, but on a typical year, we'll do a winter sleeping bag order. We'll do a dry suit. We can get dry suits at a discounted rate for students who want to get a dry suit. Or sometimes it's a pro deal package of dry suit, life jacket, and helmet. So we set those up every year, and it depends year to year. And this year's actually pretty tricky just because of COVID. I don't really know what to say about that right now. I know a lot of our suppliers are backed up.
More
Elise?
questions about the age requirement. So if they're 18, the year they plan to apply, could they still be accepted?
Yeah, the answer is yes. The challenge would be if you wouldn't be able to necessarily go into the national parks on the mountaineering course. If it goes into the mountain parks, it doesn't always. So the answer is yes, but there could be some ramifications, but may not be.
And then there's a question about logging hours in the summer. So after you've completed the certificate and you're looking at getting into the diploma, do you continue to log your hours over the summer?
Yeah, great question. Not necessarily well, it depends on the program area, right? So for students who want to go from Rock 2 into Rock 3, there's a prerequisite number of hours of climbing you need to get in on your own using the skills you learn in Rock 2 in order to apply them in Rock 3. Okay. Otherwise, there's no point in taking Rock 3 because you won't be able to learn anymore because you won't practice what you already were supposed to practice. So there's not a formal campus, or it's not campus, a program-wide requirement of hours, but per different program area, there are often prerequisite hours you need to put in between the next course.
Okay, so we're coming to a close here, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. If you do want to learn more about TRU, you can certainly book a one-on-one meeting with myself or any of my lovely colleagues. You can book those face-to-face or virtually through our website. And then you have all joined us for this open house session. We have lots more that are happening. So check out the registration page. There's lots of different departments as well. So it's not all just about programs. There's lots to learn about studying at TRU in general. So you want to join us for those sessions. We hope to see you there. And then, of course, if you do have any questions, you can submit a form on our website 24/7. We have a really quick turnaround. We look to get back to students within 48 hours for the most part. And we will also be out potentially in a community near you. We're hosting face-to-face sessions for Discover TRU if you want to get a better sense of what life is like on campus and all about the application process. You'll want to check us out. We'll be in Surrey, Chilliwack, Calgary, um, all over the place, really. You can have a look online, and we hope to see you there. And then for those of you who loved this session and you're super excited to apply, we are open for application. We opened on October 1st, so you can apply for $31.02. You'll want to get that in. And as we discussed, your interim transcripts, you can submit those along with your final transcripts. If you happen to have any previous post-secondary education, you'll need to submit those official transcripts too. And that will give us a complete record of your academic history. So that's what we're looking for. If you need a hand with that, you can reach out to us in the Future Student Office. We're happy to give you a hand. And I see more questions coming in for you, Craig.
Sure. Prakram here has the question. 6 hours a week program schedule. Prakram, I'm not sure where you got that from. It's not 6 hours a week. It is many more than that. So that field season, you'll be in the field, 6 days, 24 hours a day. And then in the academic class, they could be 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon for 6 weeks. So maybe that's where you got the 6 hours a week, but it's 6 hours a day that you would be in class times 3 to 4 days. We try to make long weekends accessible for being practitioners. When would the potential semester start if we applied now? We only do one intake in adventure studies certificate and diploma, and that's in September and the last week of August. Degrees you can start in January, but diplomas only in September. Examples of co-op opportunities. We've had people work with all sorts of adventure operators. I know Canadian Mountain Holidays took on one of our students. We're working on actually a co-op type experience with Mike Wigley's heli skiing. That's winter type things. Yeah, definitely summer employment with sea kayaking operations or whale watching or whitewater rafting operations are really common. Do we need to do an internship? There is not a formal requirement of internship in our program. Most of our students get out and get jobs right away in industry after their first year. So there is not an internship requirement. All right, team. Well, I'm going to thank you very much for joining us today. It's really my privilege and pleasure to share a little bit of our program. Really happy with our program. We feel very, very blessed to have such a great program here in Kamloops. So,
Yeah, thanks so much, Craig. That was so informative and exciting. I learned a lot. So I'm really excited to share that with all of our students, and we hope to see you apply.
awesome. Have a great day, y'all.